Right now, AI is very limited. The things will improve very, very quickly, I think.
Eventually, it's all going to be open source. The whole national security angle is going to fade away. And
we will very likely see civilization grow to something like 100 billion decision-making entities over the next decade or two. So what does AI want to buy?
I mean, I think they got to use some crypto. Maybe they'll make up a new crypto. We don't even know, right? I think it's complete white space. And so hopefully they use Bitcoin, I hope. Or some of the things that are in my bags, but you never know, right? So that's the whole point. It's super open field, and like who knows what sort of things people will come up with when the cost of an LLM is like almost free, right? It's expensive, but it'll come down in cost, and then there'll be all sorts of different things that we can't even imagine that are going to be created. So I think it'd be really hard to sort of like pigeonhole like where it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think AI is so wide, right? It's not like blockchain. Blockchain is no, it's conceptually much similar to AI can apply to anything. I think we can easily imagine AI is already being used for trading. Right now, when people talk about AI, it's ChatGPT, it's a chat LLM model, but that's only a very small part of AI. So I think in the future you can self-driving cars and all this other stuff, right? All of them can have token economics in there. Yeah, it's very hard to pinpoint that. And also, I think it's not important to pinpoint to try to forecast the future to that precise of a level. Whereas, unless that's something you're working on, whatever you're working on has potential, right? So you don't have to really choose specifically to be successful. Yeah.
In 2014, Naval Ravikant wrote a blog post that he's since then taken down. I don't know why. But he argued that crypto in the fullness of time will end up being more for AI than for humans, because the internet, he argued, is missing a settlement layer for machines to negotiate with each other. In that article, he used self-driving cars as an example. So just kind of paint that picture and think about what is an agent in a car. So I used to live in Beijing for 7 years, and in Beijing, there are more cars on the road than there are people in Los Angeles, right? Asian cities, crazy scale. And the average commute is 2 hours. So if you do a quick back of the napkin calculation, you find that more time than it took to build the pyramids is wasted in Beijing traffic every week, right? So then we might think like, okay, but aren't self-driving cars going to help us with this? Well, yes and no. The yes is only if we can fix two problems. One problem is that the cars need to be able to talk to each other and negotiate with each other for things like lane merging in Naval's example, right? But also for them to actually be able to communicate with each other in a mutually intelligible way, machines are going to have to learn to talk about physical space. So while AI is arguably very broad already, it's worth remembering that the World Bank says that 70% of the world economy is still tied to physical places and physical locations. AI can only act on digital information. So I think that the biggest role that crypto has to play in the future in AI is to be this communications and settlement layer between AI that want to buy data about the real world so that they can solve problems for us. So I think, for example, the DePIN trend will culminate in something like a decentralized machine perception network that will allow agents to do things outside of crypto, out in the physical world. And crypto will be an important part of that settlement layer and communication layer.
Cool. Thank you. There's actually another story I just heard recently saying that crypto is probably created by AI. If you think about an AI that requires a currency, they don't have a way to do KYC. They don't have a proof of address. They don't have any physical form. So if you ask AI to create money, it will be crypto. Maybe. Why not?
I mean, all the models are pretty much open. I'd say maybe they might start that way, but eventually it's all going to be open source. And so the whole national security angle is going to fade away, and at least I think, because it's very hard to like keep your AI and all your engineers, espionage and all kind of shit, right? It's going to all be out there anyways, in my view.
I'm not an expert on that, so.
I have a bit of a controversial take on this, which is that the US is very arrogant to believe that they have a lead right now in AI. Because large language models is only a very small part of what AI needs. If we go back a couple of years and try to remember what was the biggest AI company in the world before anyone had heard of OpenAI? It was a Hong Kong company called SenseTime that focuses on computer vision and machine perception. A couple of months ago, Elon Musk went on the Lex Fridman podcast and he was asked, what will it take to win the AI race, right? And Elon said two things are important. One is you need to have the best access to compute, which is why he's building this data center. But the other part is the best access to data. And the problem, he said, is that all of the data that humanity has generated so far, all of the things that we have written, all of the videos that we have recorded, is not enough to train an AGI. But, said Elon, reality scales. And then he said something that we as the decentralization community should be scared by. He said that Optimus, his future humanoid robot, will be the biggest source of data in the world. Not the biggest consumer of data, the biggest source of data. So Web2 companies and people like Elon are hoping to use robotics and AI to collect data from our homes, from our places of business, to be able to train AI, because the LLMs haven't gotten that far. But if we look at what's happening in China, more than half of all robots that are sold every year are sold to China. Not made in China, sold to China. And almost half of all the robots that exist in the world today are in China. 60% of all new AI patents originate in China. And all of the world's best machine perception, which is what Elon said is missing, is also in China. So I hold the controversial opinion that actually China is pretty far ahead in the AI race, especially when you also factor in the vertically integrated production stack. So if US wants to think of AI as a national security thing, they have a lot of work left to do.
It's definitely coming. So yeah, I mean, there's the current education curriculums is like 30 years old. It hasn't changed very much in the last 30 years, and they're going to change slowly also because of the rigid structure, right? So you put in a classroom of like 30, 50 students, and you go at the speed of basically the slowest kid. So you're not encouraged to excel at what you're good at. So it's not individualized. But now we definitely have the technology to do so. So, but the teacher school classroom setting doesn't facilitate that. And right now, if you think about it, of the 8 billion people, there's probably 1 billion people in classrooms of some kind of setting, right? And with 30 people, with a couple guys talking, or with one teacher, usually. That means for 1 billion people, you need about more than 20 million teachers at any given time in the world. And the US government alone spends more than 100 billion a year on education, 1 year. And the education still sucks, right? As Donald Trump said, and Elon Musk said. So I think this is ripe for more innovation. So I think now using AI, etc., using just platforms to teach people, then if the platforms are teaching kids, the teachers should be facilitating to help with any problems, any questions, any individualized exercises, etc., then the teaching can be individualized. So then we can have say, look, if you're good at programming, go programming. If you're good at singing, go sing. If you're good at art, do art. So well, you need to have a bit of basics on every other front. So I think that's definitely coming. So but if we wait for governments to change, it's going to take a while, unless Elon gets involved. But governments even U.S. governments, which change very often, every 4 years potentially, are slow, and they're large bureaucracies. So I think we need entrepreneurs to do that. So yeah, I totally think that we'll get there. Yeah.
I think the education system is going to completely change, because what we know as school is basically daycare plus like training you how to work in a factory line, right? Why does the school day start at 9? Because that's when people had to punch in the clock at the factory back in late 19th and early 20th century. So if we're at a new AI-driven economy and we're all on some sort of like cloud application, like, do you really need to be in school 8 hours a day, or who's your nanny? Is it a robot? Right. So I think the whole what we think of as school won't be the same in 30 years. And so.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. The current schools are designed to teach basically factory workers. You got to follow rules. You should have very little creativity. They say they encourage it, but there's no creativity. It's like a very hard curriculum. So they want people to, they design like 100 years ago. We're in a different age now, right? So yeah.
I think the intersection of education and AI is very interesting for crypto, because normally crypto finds itself kind of fighting against regulation, and it's hard to get a break, right? But when it comes to education and AI, at least in the West, there are very strict rules about handling the data of minors. Very, very strict rules about handling the data of minors. Today, it would be very hard in the West to build something that is legally compliant, that is a personalized tutor for your kid. That would be almost impossible to do in a legally compliant way. So things like having a privacy-preserving AI is a prerequisite for being able to do it for children. And most of the privacy-preserving research is happening in our industry. So I actually anticipate that the intersection of education and AI will be one of the fields where crypto will have looked particularly visionary, and for once the law is in our back and pushing innovation in the right direction.
Well, there's a lot of innovation in this room, right? So Vana is like working on this specific problem where I actually think the AI is going to pay for kids' education because they need the data. So they need the data to train the AI. And that's the data they couldn't get otherwise because there's so many strict rules around it. But there's platforms like Vana trying to decentralize that and fully permission and self-volunteering way. So I think there's innovations that are happening which are really interesting. Yeah. Centralized exchanges. And futures exchanges.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many fucking deck stacks I get every day. I'd probably say that's the most overrated. Too many perp dexes.
I can actually tie that question together with the overrated question. I think that, just to zoom back a little bit, during the previous bull run, 2021, Mark Zuckerberg fired more engineers than there are engineers in all of crypto. It's easy to forget how few engineers are actually active in the crypto space. As a movement, we are labor poor. There's a lot of capital flowing around, but we're quite poor on labor. And I think one of the reasons this has happened is because of who started paying attention to Bitcoin and decentralization first. The first thing we wanted to start decentralizing was the whole monetary system. But I submit to you that there's a much bigger and more important decentralization fight that we have to take on as a community, which is how we are going to deal with privacy in the age of AI, robotics, and spatial computing. We've all used the GPS, for example, but our GPSs do not know we're sitting in this room together. It's nowhere near precise enough for that. GPS has as little to do with the future of robotics as the fax machine has to do with Facebook, right? It's just old technology. So all of the major tech companies in the world, all of them, all 7 of the tech companies in the Big 10, one of their biggest spends every year is on spatial computing, which is how you teach machines to understand and navigate the physical world. And the predominant way, almost exclusively, that these companies have chosen to solve this is through visual positioning, meaning the robot looks at something and recognizes where you are. So you're comparing what you see to a model of the world. The problem is that the model of the world is way too big to be downloaded to your device. So instead what you're doing always is that you are sending what you are seeing to them. So in a future where we have AR glasses built by Meta or robots built by Elon, they are literally looking through our eyes or the eyes of this robot, and it's all going to their centralized places of business. And I think this is a bigger threat to our privacy than anything that we have faced as a civilization before. Like, sure, Mark Zuckerberg knows everything I post online, but he does not have the ability to walk into my bedroom and check what's in my bedroom drawer. but that's power the robotics companies will have. And I think there's a lot more people now interested in contributing to AI and robotics than we have people that want to contribute to crypto, because we've been too focused on finance. And I think that the decentralization movement needs to start thinking about decentralizing other meaningful concentrations of power, like the power to position our digital devices and see through our cameras. So my hope is that the decentralization movement will start paying attention to the future of AI, robotics, and spatial computing, and pay less attention to things like DeFi, because that way we will grow our talent pool and be more competitive.
Does it matter? Just fire 9 of them, keep 1 of them, and they have the same output, right?
Yeah, I think also I believe in simulation theory. So we're already living a simulation. We're already simulated. So this is just that our simulation is getting advanced enough that we can create sub-simulations, which is all fine. It's all nested anyway. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But what matters is that we're going in that direction, regardless whether we like it or any individual like it or not. But overall, though, I think today AI still have quite a lot of limitations. I'm trying to use AI to help teachers to create videos that are very engaging for kids. AI is really bad at creating videos today. If you want to create a video of a rabbit that eats an apple, then eats a banana, then does something else, the thing's not consistent. So right now, AI is very limited right now. But things will improve very, very quickly, I think. So but at the end of the day, I think human creativity will continue to be there for quite a long time. I think we always worry. We worry about jobs. With any advancement, we worry about jobs. But most people are still working today, and we're actually doing better jobs than what we had to. So I think we don't need to worry. Whenever something replaces our fundamental creativity, we can do more higher level creativity stuff. We'll see. Unless we get to super intelligence, then it's a different game.
But I think imagine how many people who never would have produced a movie or a song now have an AI tool that can be just as good as anything that came out of LA or any of these cultural centers, and you no longer have to have a music record producing company. Anyone can make something, and the quality is just going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, there's a power law, right? So there's going to be super successful people, but the long tail of content is going to be awesome.
Yeah, and now most people I don't even know how to use a movie editor. It's super complex, right? And then with AI, if AI solves most of that problem, then I can just tell AI what to create. Much easier, yeah. Right now with science, right, there's so much data. Actually, there's so much data, but there's so much data we're not even collecting. We're probably only collecting 1% of the data we could collect. But even with that 1% we're collecting, we don't, there's so much that we can't analyze it properly, at least not for humans. So that's why machine learning AI comes in. I think that's very handy. And then decentralizing, having a token model just makes it much more participation in terms of different models, different people getting involved, etc. So I think all of those things tie together really well. So I think it's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
It's liquidity, more money chasing after it. I don't even know what DeSci is, but it sounds good. You can go on CoinDesk and some Muppet can buy some token, and then if that funds the next generation of scientists who build something useful, then cool. 99% of them will lose all their money, but that's just how it is.
We're learning new words all the time, so yeah. I learned DePIN recently.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Predicting the future is always really tough, especially the immediate future. If you want to pick one, it's super tough. I think basically, there's so many different people in this space now. Whichever one strong entrepreneur or one small team that makes something successful, then that can start a new movement. So it's very hard to predict ahead of time. Where we try to do is we catch up when we see that trend happening and support it. So I don't know the answer, to be honest. Yeah.
I think it's more liquidity, right? There's more people using it. Yeah. Who knows? I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what the new primitive is, as long as it's used.
Bigger is not always better. I think my advice is there's a balance there. So I think I see many founders who come up to me and say, look, we're going to build this ecosystem. We're going to build this whole thing, right? When they don't have anything yet. That's usually not a good approach. And then I typically recommend, especially early founders, to focus on one specific niche as specific as possible that still have value. And you can do one thing well and then try to scale up, add more other things. The few exceptions is if you have a very strong reputation, have a lot of experience, been there, done that, has a lot of money, then you can say, okay, I want to build a whole thing. But even that has a very high chance of failure. Because there's just so many interdependencies when you want to build a whole ecosystem. Most ecosystems are built incrementally, contrary to what people say. Afterwards, the founder will say, look, I had this vision of this whole thing and pan out perfectly. It doesn't happen like that, right? So that would be my advice. So don't try to go big. Try to do one thing really well first. Yeah.
And on that, like, find customers who are going to pay you for your product, so you're not relying on VC funding to like tell you how to run your business or what vertical you should be in, because they just want stuff that their LPs are going to be happy they invested in after they lose all their money.
Pretty much, yeah. I think it's worth, as a founder, to take a think about just how much the economy is going to transform over the next 10 to 20 years. I think we will very likely see civilization grow to something like 100 billion decision-making entities over the next decade or two. And how the economy operates with that many decision makers is going to be very different. The economy will look very different from the way it looks today. If we look at something like energy, 5 years ago, the idea that like Web 2 tech companies would be buying nuclear power plants would have been hard to imagine. But that's just one small change in energy policy. Like if we look at robotics, which I think is going to be very, very big. If we look at one of these like dog robots, you've seen them, right? They're big, they're heavy, they have a big body. How much battery do you think one of those have? 2 hours. That's a problem. Why does it only have 2 hours of battery? Well, for one, it only has 2 hours of battery because our batteries aren't that good yet, but it also only has 2 hours of battery because navigating the world, the spatial computing part, is incredibly compute intensive. So if you start decentralizing that compute, all of a sudden a robot that could have 2 hours of battery has 24 hours of battery. So what does AI want to buy? AI wants to buy things like range, right? If your robot can buy the ability to operate for 24 hours instead of 2 hours, that's something that the robot or the robot's owner will pay for. So we need to start thinking about things like, how do we move energy around, which hasn't been a problem. It hasn't been a problem for us so far, because most of the batteries are in our pocket and have a decent lifespan, and we can plug it into a wall and stuff. But what happens when we all have humanoid robots? What happens when we all have drones? What happens when we all have these dogs? We're going to have to rethink so many things about how the economy works, and I think it's worth signing off from Twitter every now and then and just think about, what will the world look like 15 years from now?
We don't know. No, just kidding. Should have asked that yesterday.
I don't know. I mean, I guess right now it looks like everyone wants to have their own L2. Like every project, like, I don't know, you make widgets. Oh, I need an L2. Okay, sure, buddy. So I think there's a move of everyone needs to have their own chain because they need to hyper optimize things, and maybe we'll have a backlash where like none of that shit is actually performant at scale, and then everyone moves back to monolithic chain like that's optimized for general throughput. I don't know. So I think it's like a pendulum. It'll be a fashion. L2s will go out of fashion. Everyone wants to be an L1, and then just swing back and forth. I mean, what does regulatory clarity mean? He could rule a law that says if you own Bitcoin, you're all fucked, right? Regulatory clarity, right? It's clear, you're fucked. So I think people don't really, will never want to understand how politics works. They have a very high expectation and what can actually be delivered even if you have, 2 houses of Congress and Senate, blah, 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 will be expectation versus reality are going to be different. And then whoever spends the most money gets the law that they want, right? So if Coinbase and BlackRock spend the most money, then now there's like 15,000 pages of KYC and nobody can use anything except for Coinbase and BlackRock. Is that what crypto wanted when they spent, I don't know, $250 million of campaign finance on this election? So I think people need to have a bit more thought about what regulatory clarity means. So that doesn't mean good or bad, it just means it's clear whatever the rule is. It could be negative impacting your business or it could be positive. So it could go either way.
Yeah, but I think this, my personal view is like this election showed that crypto is big enough to have influence. A lot of the campaign funding, et cetera, I think do come from the crypto community. And also the crypto community are real serious voters, right? And most of the crypto community is probably single purpose voters, because it's your money, right? So the policies affect that. So I do believe that policymakers will be very careful to think about decisions that affects mass number of people. Every 2 years there's another thing going on. There's another election or voting or something going on, right? So I think those things. I think I'm fairly optimistic about positive things happening. Yeah. All right, maybe one last question then. Yeah. The access is a big problem, but that problem is being improved smartphone penetration is increasing. It's also an exponential curve. So I cannot do very much with for that problem right now. My first problem that I want to solve is having the content that are good, that can deliver themselves, right? Keep the kids in front of a screen. But I need to solve that problem first. I need to make that product. I believe after I have that product, then I can approach many distribution channels, like say, look, can we partner up? Maybe Starlink or Starlink equivalent in many different countries. This is for education, right? So this is for free education. Most companies or corporates I spoke to are very open to be very lenient or very generous with providing free access to kids, etc. So like many large corporations donate billions of dollars to endowment funds, etc. So I think that's a second stage problem. So I'm focusing on the first stage. And then,
how's the progress?
Yeah. So on the progress side, the last 5-6 months or so, I had a team of 15 guys working to create content in the traditional way. Graphics designers, animation guys, game developers, building this content, and teachers together. What I found, it's released now. The app is released on giggleacademy.com, and you can download the Android version and you can play with it. I believe you will see the quality is quite high. It does work. It works to keep the 2-year-old, 3-year-old in front of the screen without too much parent intervention. We still need to improve a little bit of the AI recognition on some of the speaking. Like when you tell the kids to say Apple, some of the recognition is not 100%, and there's a little quirks here and there. So I think it can be done. That's number one. I could multiply it today just by hiring more people, but I think there's probably a more efficient way of using AI to help anybody to help any teacher to create those kind of content. That problem has not been solved yet because AI video creation is still challenging to create consistent videos. But I think that problem will be solved within the next few months or maximum a couple of years. So that's kind of the current progress. I want to get to a point where any teacher can use this tool to create content. The teachers are very good at creating PowerPoints, but then we want the AI to help them to generate that into interactive videos that can talk with kids, etc. This is especially important for younger kids. Older kids will need less gamification, but I think it's still important to have that AI generated generation capability to help teachers to do that. So that's kind of where we are. Yeah.
I love it. It's fun. I'm a fucking peanut, it's a joke. Rich as fuck. It's good. I don't know how long it'll last. How long do people want to trade memes on there? I think forever, really. It's fun. People like it.
Did you buy any meme coins?
I've got goat. That's the only one I have right now.
Okay.
I'm pissed off at him by the fucking peanut man. That was.
Yeah. So I was in prison when this whole meme thing happened. So I kind of missed out on that. It's hard to tell. But I think what in crypto we got to realize that we should never argue with the community. So whatever the community is doing, we should support. When crypto started like 10, even 5 years, or even today, there's still many people who are not in crypto who are skeptical about crypto, saying that crypto is useless, it's not backed by anything, et cetera, right? But the people in crypto knows that it has utility value. It has its values. So there was NFTs. People were questioning that, and the meme coins. I didn't buy any NFTs, and this cycle I missed most of the memes. But I'm not against them. So I think we should just follow the community, let the community decide. We as builders in the industry, we should provide infrastructure for people to participate, to choose what they want to choose, what they want to choose. How long it will last? NFT is still used by people. It's not as hot as before. So I think things do go through cycles. DeFi was really hot in 2020, but it's still used pretty heavily right now. It's still pretty large. CeFi sex is much less sexy now, but people, it's still large trading volumes on there. So I think innovations will last. The use cases may change over time, and the number of people participating may change over time. So, but we'll let the community decide. Yeah. All right, thank you so much, guys. I got to run, but you guys can stay. Yeah. Thanks for coming over. Yeah.